Jai Baba. None dies and none knows to die. The rare one who knows to die is never born again. Meher Baba. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Thanks to beloved Baba and Jai Baba to all of you. This is session number 4 of Meher Baba on death. We are reading from Discourses, 7th edition, page number 310. Yesterday, we had a very wonderful reading where Baba emphasized about finer desires and coarser desires. He spoke about the acute mental state of heaven and hell. They are not locales, they are not places, they are states of mind. And so today we are continuing with the reading, page number 310, Time in Semi-Subtle World.
Hell and heaven are both states of bondage, however, and subject to the limitations of the opposites of pleasure and pain. Both are states whose duration is determined by the nature, amount, and intensity of the accumulated impressions. Thank you. Thanks. Time in the semi-subtle world is not the same as time in the gross world due to the increased subjectivity of the states of consciousness. Though time in the semi-subtle world is thus incommensurable with time in the gross world, it is strictly determined by the impressions accumulated in the gross world. However, the important fact is that the hell state and the heaven state are far from being lasting, and after they have served their purpose in the life of the individualized soul, they both come to an end.
So we get to know a couple of things from this paragraph. Number 1, that time in the gross world, time in the semi-subtle world, they are not commensurate. They are different. We also get to know that the state of hell and state of heaven, as I said, are not places, but they are acute mental suffering or mental joy that we face. So it is all mental and not in terms of locale or place. And third important thing is that both are in the domain of illusion and both are temporary. There's no such thing as a certain person is condemned to hell forever, for eternity. Nothing happens in eternity. Both these states are in the domain of illusion, and they come to an end after the purpose is served. And the purpose simply is, in my limited understanding, number 1, to try and attempt at balancing the samskaras through acute suffering or through intense joy. That's the purpose. One purpose is that. And the second purpose is of heaven and hell, basically to give us another opportunity, another chance to reincarnate and hopefully make our samskaras balanced. Because our samskaras can only be balanced in the physical form by the grace of the Master. They are never balanced in the state of heaven or hell. So let me read this. Hell and heaven are both states of bondage. Very important. They are bindings. I remember, the best that I remember, in the period of Manzil-e-Mim, there were many followers of Meher Baba who were of Islamic faith. One such disciple was very close to Baba, and after a certain period of time, he stopped coming. He stopped coming to Baba at Manzil-e-Mim. This was in 1922. We are talking about 22. When that person met another disciple of Baba, and when he asked, how is it that you have stopped coming to Baba? The one who stopped coming said that I met one spiritual master, one Maulvi, one leader in their community. And he said that if you are following a Parsi master, because Baba was known as a Parsi businessman from Bombay, Parsi master, then you will not be able to experience the state of heaven. Yani ki in Hindi they say, you will not be able to experience Jannat. Aap Jannat mein nahi jayenge. You will not get entry in heaven. That is what he said. And that's why he stopped coming. When this was conveyed to Baba, is it true that if we are following you, we will not go to heaven? And Baba nodded, yes, it is quite true. And then Baba explains that heaven also is illusory. I have come to awaken you from the illusion of hell and heaven in order to experience the reality, experience the truth. So whatever the person said was correct, that if one is sincerely following Meher Baba's tenets, if you are following, loving, surrendering to Meher Baba, there is no scope for any of us to go to heaven. We will straight away merge in his infinity and experience infinite joy, infinite bliss, so to speak. So here Baba says, hell and heaven are both states of bondage. They are binding. However, and subject to the limitations of the opposites of pleasure and pain. It has its own limitation. Many people ask, how many years will a soul remain in the state of heaven or hell? My immediate answer is, I don't know. But my imaginative answer is, how many years are we supposed to stay on earth? And Baba has given the reply, yesterday we did that all samskaras that we have brought for expression, for experiencing in this physical body, in this physical form, when they are exhausted, the body drops. Simple as that. And I gave the example of somebody who has been given a lot of money with a return ticket and say, go around the world, enjoy yourself, do whatever you want. The moment the money is finished, he takes the return journey, which is a prepaid return ticket, and comes back home. In the same way, we are all given a certain amount of impressions or samskaras. Rather, we bring them for experiencing, and once they are over, we go back to our home. Of course, that also is not the actual home. The actual home is quite different. But assuming that we came from the astral world, we enjoyed, we suffered, and we go back when all samskaras are finished. In the same way, my limited intellect tells me that whatever karmas that we have accumulated, gathered, or amassed in this life, while we are spending the past karmas, we have accumulated something. Now, if the accumulation is not imbalanced, not very imbalanced, supposing I have been only doing good, a lot of imbalance, that means I'll spend a very long time experiencing the state of heaven. On the other hand, if somebody has done a lot of so-called bad things, then that soul will experience hell for a very long time. But if I have done something in this life without taking the ownership that I am the doer, if I have surrendered all my acts and actions to the master, if I have made my master, as the doer of everything that I do, and I am offering it all to him, then my karmas are very closely balanced. So in that case, the reincarnation would be faster. So that is my understanding from Baba's teachings. Okay, this is how the whole mechanics works. And we also get to know, which we'll come to later on, is that it is either heaven or hell. It is not something that, okay, for X number of years, you enjoy the state of heaven, afterwards you go to hell, or vice versa. No, it's only one-way traffic. And a superb example which Baba had given was, assuming that somebody has done very good deeds, but has taken the ownership, I. So obviously, all that is bound in his mental body as I am the doer, I am the doer. And so the balance, we call it the scale or taraju is like this. And Baba explains that it is like a block of ice which is kept over here. Now, as the ice is melting, that means as the person is experiencing joy, pleasure in the state of heaven, the ice is melting. This becomes lighter and lighter and lighter because it's falling down, the water is falling down. And it comes to a near balance, very close balance, then you reincarnate. Seldom it also happens that you are so muster, engrossed in the enjoyment that the scale trips on the other side. So now what has happened, your good karmas are less and the so-called bad karmas are more. So with that bad karma, you will select your place of birth, your family, your culture, your country, your continent, whatever that may be. So this is how the balancing act keeps on happening, more or less, apparently unendingly. So here Baba says, subject to the limitations of the opposites of pleasure and pain. That is what was explained. Both are states whose duration is determined by the nature, amount, and intensity of accumulated impressions. Very perfect calculation. Nature, amount, and intensity of what you accumulated here. And they are all states of bondage, heaven and hell. They are all states of illusion. So the best thing, as Baba says in the discourses, is one has to create a provisional ego, which is subservient to that of the master. In other words, in simple terms, before starting any work, think, feel, and believe that it is the master who is doing through you. After doing the work, offer the results to the master without being attached to it, without worrying about the results. And if we do this ongoingly, then what is happening is, on one hand, your past karmas are being liquidated, spent. You are not accumulating fresh samskaras because you are not the doer, it is the master who is doing it. So more or less you come to a balance. And so in other words, it is a faster way to get liberation, a faster way to balance out our both good and bad karmas. Time in the semi-subtle world is not the same as time in the gross world due to the increased subjectivity of the state of consciousness. We did this yesterday, that in the states of heaven or hell, in the semi-subtle world, which is also called the astral world, there is no physical body. Since there is no physical body, everything is done by simply thinking and feeling. And if your desires are pure desires, fine desires, lofty desires, then just by thinking about something good, you will get the experience of that goodness. But if our desires are very coarse in the sense you require the physical aspect of that. For example, in lust. For example, you are addicted to drugs or alcohol or some such thing. You require the physicality of that thing. And because the physicality is not available to you, you get intense suffering because you want it. Why you want it? Because the samskaras are there. They are instigating you to have that, but you can't have it. So that is the state of hell. So in other words, what Baba says, because of the increased sensitivity of subjectivity rather, there is no object over there. Object is physical object. It is all subjective, all thinking, all feeling. The time is not commensurate, means not measurable, not equable to the time in the gross world. Though time in the semi-subtle world is thus incommensurable, which means not comparable, with time in the gross world, it is strictly determined by the impressions accumulated in the gross world. The example I have said, whatever you have accumulated, if the accumulation is more, I am the doer, then it will take a long time for you to enjoy or to suffer and then take another birth. However, the important fact is that the hell state and the heaven state are far from being lasting. They are not eternal. They are not lasting. They are temporary. Just as how our state here on earth, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years, nothing more. In the same way, the number of the earth years and the semi-subtle years are quite different. Timings are quite different. But they are not for eternity. They are not lasting. They also come to a stop. Far from being lasting. And after they have served their purpose in life. What is the purpose in life? To subjectively think and feel and see each frame of your earthly career. What did you do, whether you did it right or you did it wrong, in a very leisurely pattern. Fast forward, pause, look at it, rewind, pause, look at it. So that then you learn the lessons from it. So your Baba says, that is the purpose of the heaven and hell state. After they have served their purpose in the life of the individualized soul, they both come to an end. Heaven also comes to an end, hell also comes to an end. It comes. Anyway, Soumya is prompting me to say that these lessons that we learn in a very leisurely, that becomes a part and parcel of your intuition in your next birth. But that will come later on.
Vivification of impressions. The coarser sensual desires, like lust, and the emotional products, like hate and anger, all contribute to the life of delusion and suffering prevalent in the hell state. The finer desires, like idealistic aspirations, aesthetic and scientific interests, goodwill towards neighbors and others, and their emotional products, like personal love or fellow feeling, contribute to the life of enlightenment and pleasure prevalent in the hell state. These states, for most souls, consist in reliving the experiences of the earthly life by vivification of the impressions left by them. Their duration and nature are dependent upon the duration and nature of the experiences undergone by the soul while in the physical body.
Vivification, to enliven, to bring back to life, to energize, to arouse. That is the meaning of vivification. The coarser sensual desires, desires which are more focused, in my understanding, more focus on I, my, me and mine. If you look at the so-called sins, because Baba said there is no sin, like let's say anger, when your desires are thwarted, you get angry. Greed, you want to have something which somebody else has, greed. Passion, lust, jealousy, pride, all these are focusing on I, my, me and mine. And we call them, there's a name called sin. So it's an ignorance actually. We think that by doing that we are going to be happy, but actually it works the other way around. So Baba says the coarser sensual desires, coarse would mean sthul, gross, sensual desires like lust, and their emotional products like hate and anger all contribute to the life of delusion and suffering prevalent in the hell state. Delusion would mean false impression, mistaken belief, self-deception. Delusion, now this is how I look at it. Illusion is something out there, objective. This is an illusion, but I am deluded. So there is this fine difference between illusion and delusion. Delusion is my misinterpretation of what is out there, that way. So Baba talks about life of delusion and suffering prevalent in the hell state. The finer desires, they also are desires, but these desires are loving, caring, concern, well-being, benefit of others, where there is no I, my, me and mine. The finer desires like idealistic aspirations, aspirations which are, there is a, idealistic would mean something which is beneficial to the other. Idealistic, optimistic, initiative, aspirations, aesthetic and scientific interest. Aesthetic would mean exquisite, gorgeous, elegant, stunning, exquisite, something which is exquisite. Aesthetic and scientific interest, goodwill towards neighbors. Neighbors would mean anybody other than me, others, and their emotional products like personal love or fellow feelings contribute to the life of enlightenment and pleasure prevalent in the heaven state. So if we have cultivated these attributes on earth, love, care, concern, goodness, tolerance, forgiveness, then automatically we have wired our samskaras in these positive impressions or samskaras. So automatically when we drop the body, we will have the experience of the heaven state. These states for most souls consists in reliving the experiences of the earthly life by vivification of the impressions left by them. Let us understand, our life as of now is spending, experiencing our past karmas. As we are experiencing, spending, utilizing our past impressions, we are also accumulating, gathering, amassing fresh impressions. So if at all, now these fresh impressions are already loaded and stamped, recorded, like we used to have that 70 mm record player, where you cut, there is a thread cut and then you put a pin on that and it plays. So that is already done on our mental body. So when we go to the other side, so-called astral world, semi-subtle world, what do? We relive, again, live again. Vivification means bringing back to life. We are reliving all that we have done on earth, not merely as a repetition of all that we have learned, but Baba says, if we just do repetition, then it's a waste of time. Important thing is we learn the lessons of the vivification that we do in the heaven or hell state. So Baba says here, these states for most souls consists in reliving the experiences of the earthly life by vivification of the impressions left by them. Those impressions we relive. Their duration and nature are dependent upon the duration and nature of the experiences undergone by the soul while in the physical body. So whatever I accumulate now, I will have to relive after the body is dropped, with the purpose of going very slowly, frame by frame, and trying to learn the lessons of what I should have done and I have not done, or I should not have done what I have done. So that is the purpose of life in the heaven or hell state.
Termination of hell and heaven. Just as a phonograph record is set aside after the needle has traveled through each groove, the hell state and the heaven state terminate after consciousness has traversed the imprints left by earthly life. Just as the song produced by the record is strictly determined by the original song recorded on it, the quality of intensified and magnified experiences the soul passes through after death is strictly determined by the kind of life that was led on earth in the physical body. From this point of view, Heaven and hell are shadows cast by one's earthly life.
So how one has lived in the earthly life will record everything in your mental body. At some places they call it Akashic record or whatever, I don't know whether it means the same thing. It's all recorded. So here, just as Baba says in a phonograph or whatever you call it, gramophone record, whatever is already recorded will only play. Nothing else can play other than what is already recorded. So whatever you have done in this particular life only would be vivified or relived when we are in the astral world. Just as a phonograph record is set aside after the needle has traveled through each groove, it goes, we used to have that record. And after the whole song is played, what do? Automatically that stand will go up. For those who have seen those times, jute box, they call it, juke box, yeah. So like that, the hell state and the heaven state terminate, finish, over, after consciousness has traversed the imprints left by earthly life. Whatever we have done, if the imprints are very long, then the music will go on for very many years. We will experience the joys in the state of heaven or the suffering in the state of hell, if it's a long drawn record. LP used to call it, long playing record, LP. But if the record is short, and how do we make the record short? By offering everything to Baba, by continuously remembering Baba in all that we think and speak and do. When we do that, then automatically everything is offloaded, given to Baba. Take it, it's yours. Then our record would be mini record. We used to get these mini records also. So it's like that. Has traversed the imprints left by the earthly life. Just as the song produced by the record is strictly determined by the original song recorded on it, the quality of intensified and magnified experiences the soul passes through after death is strictly determined by the kind of life that was led on earth in the physical body. That means it's a reflection of all that you have done on earth in the physical body. The only difference, as we did yesterday, is now there is no physical body. The physical body was like an additional veil or an additional buffer or a kind of a cushion. So it would reduce to that extent the intensity of joy as well as the intensity of suffering. But after death, the body is not there. The buffer is not there. The cushion is not there. The veil is not there. And therefore, whatever you will experience, both suffering as well as joy, would be multiplied manifold, because this body which was given is a buffer is not available. So that is why Baba is using the word intensified and magnified experiences. Those experiences would be, they are the same, they are a reflection of what we did on earth, but it will be magnified and intensified manifold. The experience would be magnified for the simple reason that the physical gross form is not now available to shield that suffering or even to shield the joys. From this point of view, heaven and hell are shadows cast by one's earthly life. Whatever earthly life we have led, it is just a shadow of your experiences in the heaven or hell state, with the main difference that the body is not there, and so the experiences there would be magnified and intensified.
Retrospective survey of earthly experiences. Heaven and hell would, however, serve no specially useful purpose in the life of the individual soul if they were to consist merely of mental revival of the earthly past. That would mean bare repetition of what has already occurred. Consciousness in these after death states is in a position to make a leisurely and effective survey of the animated record of earthly life. Through intensification of experiences, it can observe their nature with better facility and results. On earth, the consciousness of most persons is predominantly objective and forward-looking and under the pressure of unspent sanskaras. It is mostly concerned with the possible fulfillment of sanskaras through the present or the future. In life, after death, the consciousness of most persons is predominantly subjective and retrospective. With the absence of forward-goading sanskaras, it is, as in reminiscences, mostly preoccupied with reviewing and assessing the significance of the past.
Retrospective survey of earthly experiences. Retrospective would be reflective, self-reflection, or backward looking. That means we are now surveying after we have lived the entire life on earth, 60, 70, 80, 90 years. You go back to the astral world, you start from your birth and your childhood and your young age. So it is a retrospective survey of what is going on. So Baba says, retrospective survey of earthly experiences. Heaven and hell would, however, serve no spatially useful purpose in life of the individual soul if they were to consist merely of mental revival of the earthly past. If it is only a re-look, okay, I am mentally reviving vivification of my samskaras, what I did in the past, I am simply seeing it again. It's a waste. You already did that on earth and you are only again reliving that in the state of heaven or hell. So it doesn't serve any purpose. But the main purpose is, this is a very, very fine tuning for us to learn that it is not just viewing, but you have to go through it very leisurely, as we say, frame by frame, without any push and pull of the earthly life, and view that and take the lessons from it and then learn from it. So here Baba says that it would not serve any purpose if it was just a revival of that. That would mean bare repetition of what has already occurred. Consciousness in these after-death states is in a position to make a leisurely, aram se, no hurry, leisurely and effective survey of the animated record of earthly life. Now it is all animated, lively, spirited, energetic record of what we already done. Now you are leisurely seeing, reviewing and reliving what you have done on earth. Through intensification of experiences, we have seen earlier that because the gross body form is not there, all experiences are intensified and magnified multiple times because the physical form is not there to cushion those experiences. Through intensification of experiences, it can observe their nature with better facility and result. It is something like today we see a photograph, right? But now if you want to know with better facility, what do? You zoom it. You do this, bring it closer and closer. Now I am seeing better. Now I am seeing better. You fast forward, you don't fast forward. You take it back, again view it, take it back, again view it, again make it larger, and then you have got all the time. You have to just observe as to what you should have done and not done, or you should not have done but done, and then take the lessons from there. So that is the meaning of observe their nature with better facility and results. On earth, the consciousness of most persons is predominantly objective and forward-looking and under the pressure of unspent samskaras. Every moment, every day, our unspent samskaras wake us up in the morning. Otherwise, we would not wake up only. They are waking, they are goading, they are telling us, come on, wake up, spend me, utilize me. So unspent samskaras are goading us. And most of us are objectively looking what you have to achieve, where you have to go, what is your goal in life. So you are objectively doing it. In the after-death state, in the semi-subtle astral world, there is no objectivity. Everything is subjectivity. Everything you are just visualizing, you are imagining, you are thinking, you are feeling, and you get the experience. So here Baba says, on earth, the consciousness of most person is predominantly objective and forward-looking. There is no looking forward. There is aram. At your own pace, you can do whatever you like to do. Forward-looking and under the pressure of unspent sanskaras. The unspent sanskaras are always pushing you to move forward, move forward. It is mostly concerned with the possible fulfillment of samskaras through the present or the future. So our present life on earth, our life on earth is nothing but the spending or utilizing or experiencing the past samskaras in the present and in the future. And therefore it is always goading us to move forward. In life after death, the consciousness of most persons is predominantly subjective. It is very individualized. It is very personalized. It is how I feel or think about a certain thing. It is not objective. So it is subjective and retrospective. There is nothing to look forward to in the afterlife or after death state in the astral world. There is nothing to look forward to. It is retrospective. It is self-reflective. What has already happened, I am now looking through it at a very casual, very leisurely pace. With the absence of forward-goading sanskaras, it is as in reminiscences. Reminiscences would mean recalling, remembering, right? You are recollecting something that has already happened in the past.
Mostly preoccupied.
In the afterlife, with the absence of forward-goading sanskaras, it is, as in reminiscences, mostly preoccupied with reviving and reviewing it. Yeah, the correct word is reviewing, but actually we are reviving also and reviewing and assessing the significance of the past. So in the astral world, what you are going through is all that you have gone through on earth while you are in the physical body. You are only reviewing it and trying to make out whether I can learn some lessons out of it. So that is it. Okay.
Analogy of cinema. The fret and fury of immediate responses to the changing situations of earthly life is replaced in life after death by a more leisurely mood, freed from the urgency of immediately needed actions. All the experiences of the earthly career are now available for reflection in a form more vivid than is possible through memory in earthly life. The shots of earthly life have all been taken on the cinematic film of the mind, and it is now time to study the original earthly life through the magnified projections of the filmed record on the screen of subjectivized consciousness.
Okay. The fret and fury. Fret would mean, you can say, the anxiousness, the worry, the anxiety, anguish, sorrow. And fury is anger, fury is rage, fury is destruction, destructive. The fret and fury of immediate response to the changing situations of earthly life. Earthly life, constantly you are expected to respond to what life is showing you on the screen. Constantly we have to respond. We can't be saying, okay, something happened now, I will think about it. No, immediately you have to respond. The fret and fury of immediate responses to the changing situations of earthly life is replaced in life after death by a more leisurely mood. You are in a very leisurely mood, freed from the urgency of immediately needed action. On earth, there are many actions which are immediately needed. In life after death, there is no such urgency to take any action. All the experiences of earthly career are now available for reflection in a form more vivid than is possible through memory in earthly life. On earthly life also, we can revive and review something which happened yesterday or a day before or a year before. You can do that. But there the picture is not very clear. It is not very vivid. Whereas Baba says that once the body is dropped and you are in the semi-subtle world, there you can have that all the memory again very, very vividly. In depth you can have the idea of what went on while you were on earth. Available for reflection in a form more vivid than is possible through memory in earthly life. The shots of earthly life, the shots of earthly life have all been taken on the cinematic film of the mind. The mind records everything, and it is all recorded for our consumption, so to speak, once we enter into the astral world. And it is now time to study the original earthly life through the magnified projections. The projection of our mind, if I were to think about what I did yesterday, right or wrong, it would not be very clear, it would be hazy, it would not be very vivid, it would be a little shady. But in life after death, you will get it very, very sharp, very, very vivid, and in a magnified format. Through the magnified projections of the filmed record on the screen of subjectivized consciousness. Again, subjective means what I am feeling about the whole thing, not objective. Any questions? No questions. Good.
Assimilation of earthly experiences. Thus, the hell state and the heaven state become instrumental in the assimilation of experiences acquired in the earthly phase, and the individualized soul can start its next incarnation in a physical body with all the advantages of digested experience. The lessons learned by the soul through such stock taking and reflection are confirmed in the mental body by the power of their magnified suffering or happiness. They become for the next incarnation an integral part of the intuitive makeup of active consciousness without in any way involving detailed revival of the individual events of the previous incarnation. The truths absorbed by the mind in the life after death become in the next incarnation a part of inborn wisdom. Developed intuition is consolidated and compressed understanding, distilled through a multitude of diverse experiences gathered in previous lives.
So that is the benefit of death in a sense. If we were to keep living for eternity, we won't know where we had gone wrong. There is no opportunity for us to stretch our legs, sit on the easy chair, take the remote, okay, start the button and see the film of what you have already learned, frame by frame, in a very magnified manner. Take your own time to study what went wrong or how did you fare in your earthly life. And then you cull out the importance of that, and that becomes your wisdom, your innate wisdom, inborn wisdom in your next birth. That's what Baba says. Next incarnation, without getting back the memory of how you got that. You know, it is like sieved, it is like distilled, it is all distilled. You will only get the core of the wisdom without allowing your brain to access how you got that wisdom in your next life. In your next life, you won't have the memory of the past life. We'll come to that later on. The brain stops the memory, but you'll get the wisdom, and that wisdom keeps on carrying on from life after life after life, and that is how we become better and better and better human beings. So that's the way of progression. Here Baba says, thus the hell state and the heaven state become instrumental in the assimilation of experiences. You assimilate, acquired in the earthly phase, and the individualized soul can start its next incarnation in a physical body with all the advantages of digested experience. Now, we have done so many good things, so many not so good things. So now you sieve it, you filter it, and now you have got the experience. So you have got a benefit of starting afresh with very little samskaras actually, because it has almost balanced, and then you start your life afresh. The lessons learned by the soul through such stock taking and reflections are confirmed in the mental body by the power of their magnified suffering or happiness. Because in the heaven or hell state, everything is magnified. Everything is intensified. Even a small, this thing would look very big because you are looking at it, so to speak, through a magnifying glass. And because they are all intensified, because it is magnified, you are able to digest it and put it in your mind, record it in your mind, the lessons of whatever you have done or not done. So here Baba said, the lessons learned by the soul through such stock taking and reflection are confirmed in the mental body by the power of their magnified suffering or happiness. They become, for the next incarnation, an integral part of the intuitive makeup of active consciousness. It becomes an intuitive makeup of active, without in any way involving detailed revival of the individual events of the previous incarnation. The previous incarnation is gone. We call it nichor, the crux. We've got the core of the learning, the kernel, so to speak, and that becomes the intuitive mental makeup in the next incarnation. The truths absorbed by the mind in the life after death become, in the next incarnation, a part of inborn wisdom. Sometimes we see that youngsters, very young, they have this innate wisdom. From where did they learn? How did they get to know so much? How is it that they are behaving like adult? How is it that they are able to do so many things which normally, because this they have acquired in their past, in their stay in the astral world or semi-subtle world, they have acquired that, and now it has become a part and parcel of their inborn wisdom. Developed intuition is consolidated and compressed understanding, distilled through a multitude of diverse experiences gathered in previous lives. It is not just one life, but you keep on gathering and distilling, and that is how more and more we become. As we progress on the spiritual aspects, we become more and more intuitive. So that is where we get our intuition from.
Heaven and hell and release of wisdom. Different souls start with different degrees of intuitive wisdom as their initial capital for the experiments and adventures of their earthly careers. This intuition may seem to have been the product of past experiences, thus adding to the equipment of the psyche. But it is more truly an unfoldment of what was already latent in the individualized soul. From this deeper point of view, the experiences of earthly life, as well as the reflective and consolidating processes they are subjected to in life after death, are merely instrumental in gradually releasing to the surface the intuitive wisdom already latent in the soul from the very beginning of creation. As is true of the earthly career and its experiences, the states of hell and heaven in the life after death are also integral parts of and incidents in that journey of the individualized soul, which is ultimately meant to reach the source of all things.
We had done this earlier, that there is no creature which is not destined for the supreme goal, as there is no river which is not winding its way to the sea. Ultimately, we all have to reach the goal of experiencing oneness with the ocean, oneness with God, oneness with existence. We can call it by any name. That is the spark which is there in each soul that will undying, that will never die, that will always lead us. Sometimes it may appear to be misleading, but ultimately we will have to reach the goal. It's like you take a drop of water, take it very high up into the sky, very, very high, drop it. Ultimately, it will fall down because that drop of water is a part of the ocean and the drop would like to become one with the ocean. You take fire, take it very down into the earth, many, many, many miles down underground. The fire will always want to come up and point upwards because that fire is symbolic or a part of the sun, which is supposed to be the fire. This is just a way of analogy. In the same way, each one of us have been embedded with a chip, so to speak. And that chip is, who am I? You know. And that who am I will keep searching and going till we experience I am God. So whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not, whether you struggle not to reach the goal, ultimately each and every soul will find and experience its oneness to the oversoul, what we call as God, Baba, existence, Paramatma, whatever you call it. That's just a name. So here Baba says, that's what Baba is explaining. Different souls start with different degrees of intuitive wisdom as their initial capital for the experiments and adventures of their earthly careers. This intuition may seem to have been the product of past experiences. We just saw that over several lifetimes we cull out what is the importance of last life or previous life, and that becomes the intuition. So it may seem, that's what Baba says, this intuition may seem to have been the product of past experiences, thus adding to the equipment of the psyche. But it is more truly an unfoldment of what was already latent in the individualized soul. That means in the individualized drop soul, this intuition was already latent. It was already there. Through the experiences, hundreds, thousands, millions of experiences, what happens is that which was latent gradually unfolds or manifests itself. We have seen it earlier that spirituality is not a gathering or collection or amassing from outside. It is an unfoldment from within. So in other words, there is nothing that is to be brought from outside. We already are perfect. We already are God. That's what Baba says. We are already God. But apart that, God has been bound, entwined with impressions or samskaras. So what is required in the process of reincarnation? Thousands, lakhs of births and deaths, births and deaths, births and deaths. What is important is that we have to wean away or weed out what we are not. So that is the whole purpose of reincarnation, is to know what we are not and to throw it out. I am not this, I am not that. That's where Baba had given a beautiful prayer for the mandali to recite for a certain period of time. And it goes like this: I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not this, I am not that. I am nothing but a living lie of that truth, that is me. And unless the lie is dead, the truth cannot be. In other words, we are all truth, but we are inverted truth, so to speak. We are truth covered by mountain loads of burden of the garbage of impressions or samskaras. What is needed now is to remove all that kachra, and what we already are will automatically manifest itself. So here Baba says that it may seem that you have acquired this intuition over several lifetimes, but the fact of the matter is that this intuition is already ingrained in the soul itself from the very beginning. It says, but it is more truly an unfoldment of what was already latent in the individualized soul. From this deeper point of view, the experiences of earthly life, as well as the reflective and consolidating processes they are subjected to in life after death, are merely instrumental in gradually releasing to the surface the intuitive wisdom already latent in the soul from the very beginning of creation. It was already latent, only is now gradually being manifested. As is true of the earthly career and its experiences, the states of heaven, the states of hell and heaven in the life after death are also integral part of and incidents in that journey of the individualized soul. That means death is such an important landmark in our life, which is to be accepted and embraced with all wisdom, because it is only a progressive thing, which is ultimately meant to reach the source of all things.
S capital.
Sorry?
S capital, source.
Yeah, source as the capital. Yeah, capital S. So here we end part 2 of reincarnation and karma. We still have time. Lots.
Reincarnation and Karma, Part 3. The existence and the memory of past lives. Gateways of birth and death. Those who have immediate access to the supersensible truths concerning the life of the soul and its reincarnation know through their unclouded perception that so-called birth is only an incarnation of the individualized soul in the gross sphere. The unbroken continuity of the life of the reincarnating soul is punctuated by birth and death, both of which are comparable to gateways in the stream of life as it advances from one type of existence to another. Both are equally necessary in the greater life of the soul, and the interval between death and birth is as necessary as the interval between birth and death.
So beautifully explained. If somebody very sincerely reads Baba's literature on death, that's why the sessions are called Meher Baba on death, our entire outlook on death changes. Of course, this is not the real death, as we start the session by saying that none dies, none knows to die. The rare one who knows to die is never born again. So real death is the death of the mind, death of the ego-centric self, death of desires, death of selfishness, so death of separation, death of finiteness. And once that death comes, then there is no more taking birth. You are free from the chains of births and death. But at the same time, that is the ultimate death which we have to aim at, which we should be looking forward to, But learning this aspect of death, which is just a physical death, the false death, also gives to our mind so much of peace, so much of calm, tranquility, that death, as Baba says, is only an incident in life. That death is as much important as birth. The problem lies, if at all you call it a problem, is in our ignorance of taking the body as the self. The body is just given as an instrument for the spirit, for the soul, to experience different experiences on earth. And then once those experiences are, the samskaras or impressions are utilized, then to drop the body, go into the astral world, learn what you have done right, wrong, again come back, and this keeps on happening. And if in our earlier sessions we had done, that if we take in a sense, impersonal, everything that happens in our life is impersonal, then by and large we are able to really just flow on the surface and not be affected by it. But because we take everything personally, like yesterday, day before, somebody was there, somebody said about feeling hurt and all that. And I quoted Lord Buddha's statement, very, very profound. If you are suffering, you are to be blamed, full stop. Finish. Question, what is suffering? What is hurt? It is your ego that is feeling hurt, isn't it? Once we remove our false, self-centric ego mind, then by and large everything is very smooth flowing. So your Baba says, gateways of births and deaths, those who have immediate access to the supersensible truths. Supersensible means not easily accessible through our five senses. Supersensible, above the five senses. Truths concerning the life of the soul. We are talking about life of the soul, not life of the physical body. And its reincarnation, know through their unclouded perception, through a very clear perception, that so-called birth is only an incarnation of the individualized soul in the gross sphere. What we call as birth is only an incarnation of the individualized soul in the gross sphere. The unbroken continuity of the life of the reincarnating soul is punctuation, like comma, semicolon, full point, by birth and death, both of which are comparable to gateways in the stream of life. There is an advancing stream of life. It has to have birth, it has to have death, and both have to be accepted with cheerfulness and with open-heartedness, with the clear understanding that with every birth and death, we are progressing further to the source of all things. The unbroken continuity of the life of the reincarnating soul is punctuated by birth and death, both of which are comparable to the gateways in the stream of life as it advances from one type of existence to another. Both are equally necessary in the greater life of the soul. And the interval between death and birth means that time where we spend in the semi-subtle or astral world is as necessary as the interval between birth and death. today what we are experiencing is the interval between birth and death. We are learning, we are trying to make the best of everything that is available in terms of spiritual knowledge. But this is the interval between birth and death. But that will occur, it has to occur, which is a positive thing moving forward. And the interval between death and birth, that means our so-called subjectivity in the astral semi-subtle world, is equally important.
Demands of intuition. As is true of those who consider death to be the termination of individual existence, those who consider the birth of body to be its beginning are also confronted with a conflict between their false assumptions and the claims of rationalized intuition. From the standpoint of individual justice, the uneven distribution of good and bad in relation to material happiness or prosperity seems seriously to impugn the rationality and justification of the entire scheme of the universe. To see the virtuous at times suffering deeply and the vicious possessing the amenities of pleasure creates insurmountable difficulties for anyone who prefers to look upon life as being meant to fulfill an eternal and divine purpose.
When we say that God is just, He is very just, He will not be doing anything injustice to anybody, then a natural question comes, how is it that some children are born lame, blind, deaf, some are born so wretched, poor, and some are very rich? This is a very profound question which each one of us should ask. And the only answer to this, in my limited understanding, would be that it is because of the operation of the law of karma, which is most just, and it does not favor anybody or anything. Because ignorantly, erroneously, we are thinking about the birth of the body as the birth and the death of the body as finished, everything is over. That's why we can't understand why things are happening the way they are happening. Unless and until we understand the law of karma, we understand that there is reincarnation, and the reincarnation process is to bring the law into action. Here Baba says, as is true of those who consider death to be the termination of individual existence. There are people who feel that, he has struggled, he has learned, he was such an educated person, he was a gem of a person, he was so useful to the universe, maybe a doctor or engineer or scientist or whatever it is, and he's died, finished. That means it's such a great loss to the universe. It is a very myopic way of seeing things. There are those who consider birth of the body to be its beginning and are also confronted with a conflict between their false assumption, this is a false assumption, and the claims of rationalized intuition. Irrespective of the fact that these are false assumptions, at the core level, at the inner level, there is a rationalized intuition which says that there is something beyond this which we are unable to understand. We have done this in the very first session. There are many religious thoughts which talk about only one birth and one death. And there are a few religious thoughts which talk about multiple births and deaths, that is reincarnation. And as I said yesterday, Baba so brilliantly explains what is the meaning of one birth and one death. We are not going to go into it again. It is there in God Speaks supplement. You can read that, and that puts an end to all the misunderstanding between these two thought processes which are both so rigid in their thinking that they are only right. From the standpoint of individualized justice, the uneven distribution of good and bad in relation to material happiness or prosperity seems seriously to impugn the rationality and justification of the entire scheme of things. Seriously challenge, seriously dispute, or seriously call into question why is it that some people are born with a silver spoon, some people are born, I add this, with a plastic spoon, some people are born with cardboard spoon, and some people are born with no spoon. Why is it that there is so much of disparity? Why is it, if God is just, every should be equal? So it calls to question what is happening. To see the virtuous at times suffering deeply. Those people who have done so much good are actually suffering deeply. And
The vicious.
And the vicious, possessing the amenities of pleasure, creating unsurmountable, very difficult to overcome, unsurmountable difficulties for anyone who prefers to look upon life as being meant to fulfill an eternal and divine purpose. Life is supposed to fulfill an eternal and divine purpose, but I just don't understand why things are happening. The good people are suffering, and the bad people, so-called bad people, are enjoying. How is it? But when we bring into play the karmic law, the law of karma, when we bring into play, the reincarnation process, then everything fits very clearly. The example that I generally give, there is a big container, cauldron, we call it. A big container like Food Corporation of India, they are very big containers. And there is a ladder, and one person after another, one after other, gunny sack of rice, basmati rice they are taking and emptying it into that big container, and then coming down from the other staircase. They are going up, emptying, coming down, going up, emptying, coming down. And the person who is watching is seeing that all the white shining basmati rice is going up and it is being poured into that container. But when you open the tap, it can't be, it's a big tap, when you open the tap, what comes out is not rice, what you saw which was being put inside. What comes out is wheat, let us say. This is just a very crude example. How is it that when rice is being put, the wheat is coming out? The only logical answer could be that the wheat was already there in the container. And that is why, like FIFO, we call it first in, first out, So it is coming out because it was already there. In the same way, because of our past so-called negative bad karmas were already there, and therefore in this life I am trying to balance those bad karmas with my good deeds, and therefore what is visible to a third person is he is a very good man, but he is suffering. Why he is suffering? Because he had already done some bad, and this is a result of something which he had done in the past. So unless we take a broader view, a broader perspective of life, life becomes very intriguing. It is very mystifying. How come that good are suffering and so-called bad are enjoying? This is my interpretation.
He chooses to take that life. That is what is important.
All right. Unless?
Tendency to accept deeper explanations. Unless there is some deeper explanation forthcoming, the human mind is riddled with agonizing perplexities that tend to embitter a person's general outlook on life and foster a callous cynicism. This, in many ways, is even worse than the deepest personal sorrow that death may cause. But in spite of all appearances to the contrary, the human mind has in it an inborn tendency to try to restore to itself a deep and unshakable faith in the intrinsic sanity and value of life. Except where artificial resistances are created, it finds acceptable those explanations that are in conformity with this deeper law of the spirit.
Okay. So now we have seen how, because we are seeing with a myopic viewpoint, we feel that there is injustice in life. But according to Baba, when we take a broader view, we realize that everything is happening according to the operation of the law of karma. There are so many past lives, millions. What we have done, we do not know. And therefore, this apparent anomaly in the good suffering and the bad enjoying. Unless there is a deeper explanation forthcoming, the human mind is riddled with agonizing perplexities. Agonizing would mean, you can say, very harsh, very cruel, very painful perplexities that tend to embitter. It makes the person very bitter, embitter a person's general outlook on life and foster a callous cynicism. Callous would mean lack of sympathy, heartless, merciless. People tend to become heartless. Cynicism would mean a deep distrust in the human goodness. When you see all these things happening, you feel that all this is humbug, all this is bunkum, the divine law and the divinity and all that is humbug. There is no such thing as law. It tends to be. And this suffering, Baba says, this is in many ways even worse than the deepest personal sorrow that death may cause. But it's, in spite of all appearances to the contrary, the human mind has in it an inborn tendency to try to restore to itself a deep and unshakable faith in the intrinsic sanity and value of life. As I said, that spark that is there in each one of us of goodness, of divinity, that will never be extinguished. One may see anything that is happening out there, but in here you do feel that no, there is definitely hope. That something that is happening out there has a meaning which I am not able to understand. Except where artificial resistances are created. That means the soul, the intuition, the spirit, the heart knows that I don't know what is happening out there. But if the artificial resistances are created, then it will not be able to open up to the reality. That's what Baba, I would interpret. Except where artificial resistances are created, it finds acceptable those explanations that are in conformity with this deeper law of the spirit. In other words, we are all having that compass within us which always tends. It may appear that people are doing all kinds of wrong things, but the compass is always telling them to do the right thing. Maybe in one life, 2 lives, or several lifetimes in a row, they may be doing what we call as wrong things, whatever we want to name it, But the compass will never leave that particular drop soul. Eventually, maybe sometimes after several lifetimes, it will make that soul realize that this is not the way I am expected to go, and it takes a U-turn, and then it moves on into the what we call as the right direction.
Effects of getting a new brain. Those who have direct access to the truth of reincarnation are even fewer than those who have direct access to the truth of the immortality of the individual soul. The memories of all past lives are stored and preserved in the mental body of the individual soul, but they are not accessible to the consciousness of ordinary persons because a veil is drawn over them. When the soul changes its physical body, it gets a new brain, and its normal waking consciousness functions in close association with the brain processes. Under ordinary circumstances, only the memories of the present life can appear in consciousness because the new brain acts as a hindrance to the release of the memories of those experiences that had been gathered through the medium of other brains in past lives.
So now we all know that there is something called the mind. Everything gets recorded. All impressions, all samskaras get recorded. And experiences are happening in this world as well as in the other world. Every time the soul reincarnates, it gets a new body. When it gets a new body, it gets a new brain. And when it gets a new brain, that becomes like a barrier, like a bandha. It does not allow all the memories which are stored in the mind to come into the brain and to give us the experience. Only those experiences which are needed in order to expend or spend or experience the samskaras which we have brought along with us to experience in this particular form, those are allowed to pass. The rest are all blocked up. And therefore, by and large, most people do not have access to the past lives. So, and it is not necessary also. Baba says here, those who have direct access to the truth of reincarnation are even fewer than those who have direct access to the truth of the immortality of the individualized soul. Direct access means direct experience. I know through personal experience that there is reincarnation. I don't know. We learn, now I have no knowledge of my past life. For me, this life is the only life. But that means that's what Baba says, the very few people have access to the truth of reincarnation and to the truth of the individualized life of the individualized soul. The memories of all past lives are stored and preserved in the mental body of the individualized soul, of the individual soul. But they are not accessible to the consciousness of ordinary persons because a veil is drawn over them. A curtain, a veil, a parda. When the soul changes its physical body, it gets a new brain, and its normal waking consciousness functions in close association sorry. Normal waking consciousness will function in close association with the new brain. That's all. It won't go through, we say, parde ke piche. You won't know what is behind the scene. Okay. Normal waking consciousness functions in close association with the brain processes. Under ordinary circumstances, only the memories of the present life can appear in consciousness because the new brain acts as a hindrance to the release of the memories of those experiences that had been gathered through the medium of other brains in past lives. So that means the brain is like a stopper where it does not allow the memories of the experiences of the past lives to penetrate or to percolate into this life. I think we are done with. Some 2-3 minutes left? 5 minutes. Okay, then we'll do one more paragraph.
Memory of past lives. In rare cases, in spite of the resistance offered by the brain, some memories of past lives leak into the present life in the form of dreams that are completely unexplainable in terms of the present life. An individual may see persons in his dreams whom he has never seen in his present life. It often happens that those who appeared in the dreams were persons whom he had met in his past lives. But of course, such dreams, when they are of the ordinary type, cannot be treated as a memory of of past lives. They merely indicate that the imagination at work in the dreams was influenced by information taken from past lives. The real memory of past lives is clear, steady, and sure, like the memory of the present life. When it comes to an individual, he no longer has any doubt about his having existed in several previous lives along with many other individuals, just as he cannot doubt his own past life in the present incarnation, he cannot doubt his life in past incarnations.
So, memory of past lives. In rare cases, we have seen there are so many documented cases where people do get memories of past lives, and they go to that place, they associate with the persons if they are living, still living. But Baba later on says that they are not necessary at all. And for an ordinary person, it would create more chaos in his life rather than clarity. If such a memory comes back to a spiritually advanced person, then that advanced person can gainfully use that knowledge for betterment of the other person, but other than that, it is not at all necessary. In rare cases, in spite of the resistance offered by the brain, some memories of past lives leak into the present life in the form of dreams that are completely unexplainable in terms of the present life. Some weird dreams of seeing people, seeing places which you have never been in this life. Unexplainable. An individual may see persons in his dreams whom he has never seen in his present life. It often happens that those who appeared in the dreams were persons whom he had met in his past lives. But, of course, such dreams, when they are of the ordinary type, cannot be treated as a memory of past lives. It's not a memory, just a passing. What could happen, Baba is explaining. They merely indicate that the imagination at work in the dreams was influenced by information taken from past lives. That means some information from the past life was taken, or it got leaked into the dream state of the present life. The real memory of past lives is clear, steady, and sure, like the memory of the present life. There is no uncertainty with regard to memory of the present life. You know what is what, So when you talk about memory of past life, they are very clear, crystal clear. They are very much steady and they are very sure. When it comes to an individual, he no longer has any doubt about his having existed in several previous lives. When the memories of the past life comes, he has no doubt that he has lived year and year and year, along with many other individuals, just as he cannot doubt his own past life in the present incarnation. He is not doubting the past life. He cannot doubt his life in past incarnation. That means just as how he is not doubting that I am living in the present, he cannot doubt all of his past lives. But that's a very rare case where these memories can percolate or seep into or leak into the present. I think we end here. We end at page number 315. Any questions to ask? Everybody understood everything. Thank you very much. So we end here. We meet again next Saturday, same time, same place. Thank you, beloved Baba, for all this knowledge that he is giving. Let us hope and pray that he helps us to live and internalize this knowledge in our present life so that we move forward towards his this thing. Thank you, beloved Baba. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. And thanks to all of you, and thanks to Naman for sparing his time, precious time, and being with us, helping us to live streaming and recording. Thank you. Jai Baba.